shows you Thyatira. It was known for many dyes, tanners, different types of workers. But the point here is on the right side of that slide, many Christians died in that time rather than to compromise themselves in the guild festivities. What's so important about the guilds? Guild members had to keep the pagan feasts. Remember that. That speaks well of this period. The guild dictated accepted norms and lifestyles. You have a church, an organized church today, that's dictating things that you're supposed to accept. All this politically correct stuff. It's not politically correct to speak against Islam. In fact, it's not politically correct anymore in the church to speak against Rome. A huge part of Christianity is already merging, accepting Catholicism as Christian. This has been the work of the popes, to try to bring it all under one head, him, of course, being the head. This is all going on. You wonder how come you don't hear the prophecies, the end times being taught like they used to in the churches. Used to be you could go down the block and you could find revelation, prophecy all over the place. It's not being done anymore. Because nobody wants to speak against Catholicism. You don't speak against Catholicism, you can't teach about the Antichrist. Because we saw it all come. Daniel said it was going to come out, rise out of there, right? And now you can't speak against Islam. Right? Because that's the other horn. If you can't speak about Islam and you can't speak about Catholicism, guess what? You can't teach anything having to do with prophecy or the book of Revelation. So you can just nail it down. You can't do it. We have what I would call the great spiritual saga. We have the major players. We mentioned Jezebel, and we mentioned Apollo, right? Well, look at here. In the 12th chapter of Revelation, we have a woman who's obviously pregnant. She's clothed with the sun, right? So the moon is under her feet. She's obviously going to give birth to the Messiah because it says her child rules and reigns with a rod of iron. But guess what? That child is not only Jesus. Jesus is the head of the body. How many have heard, one of the criticisms is, you won't find the word rapture in the Bible. You will right here. I'm going to show you where it is. This chapter talks about the rapture. The child in the womb represents Jesus as the head, and the rest of the members of the body is the church. Revelation chapter 12. There appeared a great wonder in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun. Glorious, right? And the moon under her feet. What is that? In the book of Genesis, you got to go to the book of Genesis for some of these details. The sun was called the greater light. The moon was called what? The lesser light. What this is saying is this woman was clothed with the sun. All lesser light was under her feet. This is nothing less than the wife of God, or what we would call the bride of Christ. In the Old Testament, Israel was called the wife of God. Remember, have you read prophecies where he talks about, I will divorce her? And then he'll call her back. Remember the prophet Hosea? It might have been, I think it was Hosea who divorced his wife and then took her back. And I think it was Hosea. So all the lesser light is under her feet. And upon her head were 12 stars. Now, those 12 stars, I've come to think that the 12 stars represented the zodiac. And I'll tell you why. Because I learned that the teaching of the signs in the heavens preach the gospel.
Yes, they do. I have a very 2 CD version of Pastor Baker preached on that. And it'll make you sit there with your mouth open.
Yes. And we're going to see some of that. We're not going to get into a lot of details on it. I don't want to stress anything like that. I'm just bringing some of these things up to you, that there's a lot of evidence out there.
Oh, yeah.
Josephus, the historian, is basically said that it was Enoch, Adam, and Seth who taught all these mysteries concerning the coming of Christ. They didn't write it down in a book. They looked up at the stars and they preached it. You couldn't take away that book until in Nimrod's day, Semiramis confused it all.
There's a little piece of scripture that says, and they were without excuse.
You know what? We have that scripture in our notes here that we'll be looking at. But you're absolutely right. Book of Romans says, in first chapter, says they're without excuse because everything about creation testifies to the truth. But let's keep reading on this here. It says, she being with child cried, travailing in birth, pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. And you can almost hear dun 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 dun. If you're watching a movie and all of a sudden it starts getting louder and the music and something bad is coming. And I can hear this as I'm reading dun dun dun.
Yeah, like on Jaws.
Yeah, Jaws, exactly. And this guy's got these jaws. Look at the jaws. Look at the jaw. Oh, you didn't see the picture. The picture previous, he got the big old teeth. But his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven.
That's in that picture too. You can see where his tail is.
Huh?
That's in that picture. You can see his tail.
Look at that. See how the tail is grabbing a third of the stars? Now, if we were looking, here's something that you don't see. You see this picture, but here's something you don't see, but it comes out if you look at the whole planisphere of the 48 constellations that make up the gospel according to in the heaven. The serpent is so long, he covers a third of the whole planisphere. And when he's tossed out of heaven, you can just see if he was tossed out of heaven, he would take a third of the stars with him. It's amazing. If I couldn't have done better if I was an artist and I drew it up myself. And yet this predates the scriptures. This is what they used to preach out of. The first book we have is from Moses. What did they used to preach? They preached the gospel. We know they preached the gospel because Enoch preached. You can see in Jude, the book of Jude. Did you know the critics tried to throw away the book of Jude? You know why they wanted to throw that away? Because Enoch's coming back. Enoch preached the gospel and the coming of Jesus Christ. It's written in what I refer to the eternal gospel message, which is the gospel written in the heavens, in the stars. But Enoch will stand upon this earth at the time of the end and declare as prophet to the Gentile world. Because we have a prophet Elijah, right? And he will be able to say all this. But you'll notice a third of the stars were taken from heaven. What does that really represent, a third of the stars? Did you know what stars represent? Not demons. You could call them demons when you look at the third falling. But remember when we first started reading about the 7 churches and Jesus had 7 stars in his hand, and what did he say? Those were the angels over the churches, right? Stars represent angels. In fact, you can go into the book of Job and talks about when God created the universe. And the morning stars gathered together and they sang for joy. It was the angels of heaven stood. And it even says, the sons of God. The morning stars, the sons of God. But we know there was a rebellion in heaven. Well, we know there was a rebellion. But we just got through looking at a picture of Nimrod. What's his name? Rebel. He represents the rebellion against heaven, which Satan led. Nimrod did the same thing. He was the rebel on earth. He was basically the incarnation of Satan. And what did he do? He led astray as many people as he could. And they're still doing it by the same system. And he drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven. He cast them to the earth. Why do you think there's so much problems? And that's where George came up with this idea, demons. We have a lot of evil here. And it didn't just go away. You remember Jesus went on the earth and he cast all these demons out of the madman of Gadara into the pigs. And they committed what? Suicide, right? So you remember that. I've talked to people in churches and they think, those demons were here in the day of Jesus, but when he rose from the dead, they were all put in hell. Where did you read that? Satan's still walking around on the earth. The demons are still on this earth. And the fallen angels are still working against you on this earth. In fact, that's why Paul wrote to put on the armor of God, that you may be able to stand. Right?
Absolutely.
These goofy people teaching that it's all passed away.
What is thy name?
Where are they getting that from? There's some preacher standing up there behind a pulpit somewhere preaching that stuff. The congregation doesn't just make that up. So we have this character, the woman, right? But you can't stay on here. I'm just going to read that again. She, being with child, travailing in birth, pain to be delivered. And it says later that the dragon was going to try to devour that child, but he was what? Caught up to... Did you know what that word is, caught up? Rapture.
It also means changed, which it says we were changed in the rapture.
He was changed.
But
if anybody tells you the word rapture is not in the Bible, it's right there. It's right there. It just, in English it says caught up. No, you can't go to your Strongs. Yeah.
In the church I was raised in, of course, they didn't call it the rapture, but they did call it the catching.
The catching away, right.
To separate themselves from everybody else.
Catching away. Yeah. And that's what it means, being caught up. This teaching is not new. Some people, that's a new teaching. That was here when John wrote the book.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And, the interesting thing is when the child was caught up, did it say that his head was decapitated and went up to heaven? While his body, like a chicken with no head, just stood here on the earth? The whole body went up. You know what that says? We're not here. That happens in the 12th chapter. When does Antichrist rise? The 13th chapter. So the body of Christ is already taken. So look at those teeth. Now, granted, we don't know if that's what the dragon really looks like, but if he does, I don't want to be anywhere near him. You see right in the... I put some circles around it. Look at that. You see there's a man with his foot on the head of the dragon, right in the center of everything. That is the gospel. That's the first prophecy that God delivered to man when He spoke to Eve and He said, your foot will crush his head.
I don't see him losing the heel anymore.
There's elsewhere. There's another sign where actually Scorpio. We don't see it here. Scorpio comes with this venomous poison and stings the heel of the strong man, who you can see his head there at the top, but you can't see the red. You can see a little tail of a serpent there, but you can't. He's really actually wrestling against them. But we're just focusing in the center here, and in the very center, we see the gospel message. Is that the Messiah, the strong? You know who the strong man is? It's the constellation Hercules. That was the strongest man the Greeks knew about, right? They called him Hercules. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in the next slide, I'm taking this same picture and turning it, see, I flipped it upside down. See, now Hercules is facing down, because I want you to see, you see the yellow circle? That is Virgo with a child in her lap. See, it's right. You can't see Virgo. She's right there. You can see her foot there at the corner, at the bottom corner. That's Virgo's foot. But that's the same woman, Virgo, sitting on a throne there in the constellation Coma, and her child is in her lap. And look there at the green circle. You see the serpent reaching. What's he trying to grab? A crown. The constellation is Corona. He's trying to... What crown do you think he's trying to take? Yours. That's why Jesus said, don't let anybody take your crown. You can see it in living color here. Yeah. That's what he's after, is your crown. Actually, the crown that he is trying to grasp, who was given dominion over the planet Earth? Adam. Let them have dominion. And see, this is remember I said this is the gospel presented to us in a form where man cannot get up there and change it. See, man can tell us stories, but now that we have the Bible, he can't take away the truth. And we can see the truth. And the serpent is trying to take the crown away from Adam. Adam is a word for man, and all of us are Adam. We're all the son of Adam. Right? You see right next to the woman, you see right there between the woman and that serpent, there's somebody charging at the serpent. With the sickle?
Yeah.
You know who that is? That's the child grown that was in the woman's lap. That's Messiah stopping Satan or the serpent from snatching away your crown. That is the gospel, once again. And if you look at the meaning, and we're not, my purpose is not to get into this, because if I taught on this, it'd probably take me 48 weeks to teach on this, because there's 48 signs. And we're not going to do that. But I want you to see, when I see parallels as we go through the book of Revelation, I want to point these things out to you. These signs were not just arbitrarily thought up by John. You see, when you see these symbols, you go and look at the planisphere, and you see, there's the sign. You see the lion. Who's the lion? Leo, the lion.
Lion of Judah.
The Lion of Judah. And if we had the pit, you would see under the paws of the lion, once again, is a head of the serpent. Boom. He pounces on the head. Now I'm just going to read this through. I want you to see that this is speaking of the last days. For it is the day, this comes from Isaiah, is a day of Lord's vengeance and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. Isaiah 34, 8 through 14. And the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone. That doesn't sound good. Fire and brimstone, right? The land shall become a burning pitch. It shall not be quenched night nor day. The smoke thereof shall go up forever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste. None shall pass through it forever and ever. Have you seen anything like that yet? No. So it's coming. It hasn't come yet, right? And look at the next. And the thorns shall come up in her palaces, nettles and brambles in the fortresses thereof, and it shall be a habitation of dragons and a court for owls. Did you know if you go and you look at the book of Revelation, it's talking about the same thing that's going to happen to Babylon the Great. But listen to this. It said, the wild beasts of the desert shall also meet with the wild beasts of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow, the screech owl also shall rest there and find for herself a place of rest. Let's look at the satyr. The screech owl is significant also, but the satyr, the Lord gave me some more information on this, which is it's shocking. What you're about to see is shocking. Okay, a satyr. Now we know some of this stuff, right? A satyr was called a hidden being, or the hidden ones, plural. There's many of them. Basically, what these are demons. But they're hidden ones. You can't see them, but they're there. In Roman representations, they were depicted as a man with goat ears, tail, legs, and horns. Okay, I think the picture here is common. What you would think. And what we've heard, people that have actually had these things manifest to them. There's actually written accounts. There was an account of a woman, what was his name? Lester Summerall. How many have heard of Lester Summerall? He was called Lester the Demon Molester.
Yeah.
He was Pentecostal. He started, and then all of a sudden he found the Lord using him in these amazing deliverances against just things that it was just almost unbelievable what God called him to do. But in one account, there was this woman in Italy who was being continually raped by some spirit being. They had her in a psych ward. They had her restrained because they thought she was inflicting these wounds on herself. So they had her restrained. And then they could see something molesting her that was not there. And they could see bites and scratches and wounds appearing on her body. And they didn't know what to do, so they called in Lester Summerall. But when they called Lester Summerall, when they decided this was supernatural, because they wouldn't believe her, she told them she was being raped by this demonic being, and she described it like this. And she knew in her head, they thought she's crazy, and somehow she's making these marks on herself. And she knew she had to, next time this thing appeared, she grabbed, you see where his leg is? They're hairy. She grabbed the hair, and she wouldn't let go. And when this thing was done, she wouldn't let go. She pulled the hair off of his leg. And she had hair in her hand. And when the doctors came in, they saw what happened to her, and then they saw this hair. And they took it down to a lab, and you know what they classified the hair as? Unknown origin. Unknown origin. And they called in Lester Summerall, and he got rid of it. He cast it out. It was a demon. You know, this is the kind of demon, you know, where the scripture says these kind don't come out with except like fasting and prayer. But listen to this. This kind of shake you up. This, first of all, the city of Rome, we've heard about Rome, and I've gotten aggravated over the years because many pastors that used to preach on prophecy, they told me, well, I don't really believe Rome has anything to do with prophecy anymore. Oh my goodness. How clever is Satan? Because we've just gone through this for weeks and we see that Rome is mentioned repeatedly. Rome, right? Guess what Rome, the city Rome, was called before it was called Rome? Saturnia. After the god Saturn. Now look at this. Look at this with Saturn. Saturn was known as the hidden god. Remember, Satyr was called the hidden ones. Saturn was known as the hidden god or the hidden one. He was in Saturnia. There was a festival called the Saturnalia. The Saturn god was worshipped on December 25th. He was the god of the secret hidden mysteries. His name was pronounced Satyr in the Chaldee language, the Babylonian priesthood. His secret number was 666. Here you have the way it was actually spelled because there was no vowels. So Satyr was S-T-U-R. Okay, the U not being a vowel. Okay, look at this. Satyr is, or the U does represent a vowel, but the A is not there because that's the way the language works. If you add up the letters, it comes up to, you got the Samek, you got the Tav, you got the Vav, and you got the Rosh there. And it adds up to 60, 400, 6, and 200. What does that add up to? 666. How many are familiar with Hislop's Babylon the Great book? You can find it right there in Hislop's Babylon the Great book where he reveals this about the word Satyr and Saturn. When John spoke about 666 and Saturn, remember when we talked about the 7 heads on the dragon? We said actually there was the one. It represents Satan, but there was 7 heads. Did you know in mythology Saturn was also called Cronus, but he's the one? Do you remember? Does anybody remember mythology where this god swallowed the other gods, the Titans? He swallowed all 7 of them until there was only one. That's Saturn. The 7 heads. Remember I said the Titan, word Titan used to be pronounced Shaitan. We call him Satan. Shaitan is the same one. He has 7 heads. That's why he has 7 heads. He has 7 heads because God is trying to tell us this is Saturn. This is Cronus. His mystic number in the Chaldee Babylonian language is 666. There's no way you could miss this unless you were just completely blind from it. Here's some more information. Before the Hebrew language, Hebrew, actually the script that we know of Hebrew, that wasn't used until after the Babylonian captivity because it actually came from Persia. Prior to that, there was this ancient Proto-Semitic Hebrew, which was in the form of pictographs. Everybody has seen pictures from the hieroglyphics. These weren't really hieroglyphics, but how many have heard that the letters in Hebrew, they all have some type of meaning? Like the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet represents a house. It's a beth. And they say it literally is a house. The first letter is Aleph, and it represents an ox. They don't know where that came from, or that used to be. They didn't know where that came from, except for the rabbis had taught that for all the way down since Moses. Where did it all come from? Well, there's been discoveries. Again, there's been archaeological discoveries. And so they found out that these ancient pictographs was the original Hebrew. So if you look at the pictographs, we know that these pictographs had meaning. So here is the Samek and the Tav, which anciently, by the way, was a cross. In other words, you remember Jesus, where God says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end? The Aleph, the beginning, was the ox. In other words, this is the beginning of the sacrifice. And the final sacrifice is the Tav, which is the cross. Isn't that cool? But this word, the Samek, the Tav, and the Rosh, this is actually the same Rosh that when we were talking before about in Ezekiel about Rosh being Rasha. Well, it's not Rasha. It just was Rosh. It means the head or the chief or the leader, literally. Wait, look at the meaning of these. Just the letters themselves, not the word. The letters themselves. To prop up, to aid, to assist the head or chief or leader of the covenant. Ooh, what's the covenant? And you'll have these notes to review. Look at the scripture here in Isaiah chapter 28, verse 16 through 18. You've probably heard this before. And your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand when the overflowing scourge shall pass through. Then you shall be trodden down by it. God says they made a covenant with death. You see that the meaning here of this word satyr was these individual satyrs, these demons. The meaning was to prop up or to aid or to assist the head or chief or leader of the covenant, who is Satan. He's the leader of those 7 heads who's in covenant. Also, I found this reference up there at the top in the left-hand corner. I was looking in one of these Hebrew books, and it says Satyr may refer to a demon-possessed goat, like the swine of Gadara. Remember in the sacrifice there was the two goats? One was offered, the other one was let go. The sins were pronounced on him. He went over the cliff. It was to symbolize all the sins went down into hell. Who did that? Jesus became sin for us. And then He descended into hell with all those sins. He took them away from us, right? And look on the right side. The original, Satyr comes from the original word, which is Sa'ir, or Sa'ar, which is that Hebrew word underneath. The word comes from the Hebrew Sa'ar, meaning, this freaks me out, to have one's hair stand on end on the top of the skin as an involuntary response caused by cold, horror, or excitement. In other words, it's what would happen if this thing appeared in front of you. Your hair would stand up. Have you ever been where you knew something was wrong and your hair stood up on the back of your neck? That's what it's saying that this word satyr came from. And then we have that dragon underneath to show, to remember this covenant of death. Remember, I believe that, and I mentioned this before, that the reason that there's 2 marks, there's a mark on the hand and one on the head. I think there's a one which everybody gets, the mark on the hand, and the mark on the head is for the ones who voluntarily enter in to the covenant, the blood covenant with the Antichrist when he's upon the earth, so that they can know the deep things of Satan, which just so happens to be talked about in this church of Thyatira. The deep things of Satan. It says, if you haven't known or learned the deep things of Satan, I don't put any additional responsibility upon you. But, and then it goes on and on. The deep things of Satan, what is that? I believe there's people, or today, if you will, have you heard about Satanists who enter into covenant with Satan? They offer human sacrifices. They drink human blood. Some of the babies and the children that are kidnapped and you never see them again, they've been offered up as sacrifices to Satan. This happens in our own country. We're not talking about things that, are possible. This stuff happens now. People enter into covenant with Satan now. How much more in that time when he's ruling on the earth? Saturn was known as the hidden God or hidden one, the God of secret mysteries. The word, his name was pronounced Saturn, and there you see it. The word is a Hebrew, this word itself is a Hebrew root meaning hide, but the literal English translation means mystery. This is the name of the hidden system in Revelation. Mystery, Babylon the Great. Or what it's saying is, here is the mystery. It's Satyr. Satyr. Babylon the Great. There is only one Hebrew word having. Remember, I've said this before. The Hebrew language, the Hebrew words are made up of 3 consonants, and then there's some additional ones, like if you're talking about I will do something, so that's like a 4th letter added. But the root is always a 3-letter root. Listen to this. There is only one Hebrew word having 3 consonants and adds up to 666 in gematria in the whole Bible. Gematria is the system where you see, like you're putting the numbers to the letters. There's only one word that adds up to 666 in the Bible. That's in Numbers 13, verse 13. You ever heard of unlucky 13? Numbers 13, verse 13. And it says, of the tribe of Asher, Sather, or Sether, the son, it's actually Sather because of the way the Hebrew would be pronounced, the son of Michael. Well, what does that mean? You can see in Hebrew, the word I've highlighted there. I'll read the scripture and then you'll understand where is it coming from. So it says, send thou men that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto thee, the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall you send a man, every one a ruler among them. And Moses, by commandment of the Lord, sent them from the wilderness of Paran. All these men were heads of the children of Israel. Now what is this? This is when they sent the spies into the land. Now, just to make a long story short, what happened? There were 2 men that came back and said, we can take the land. Who were they? Joshua and Caleb, right? And so you could see those. I have those highlighted here in green here. You see it says of the tribe of Judah, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and then of the tribe of Ephraim was Oshia or Joshua. It's actually, there is no J in Hebrew. Ashia, the son of Nun. Okay, so that is that. Those 2. Then the 10 came back with an evil report. But how many know that an evil report starts with 1? There's an instigator. See, in every church, you'll have an instigator. Right, Pastor? You'll have a church, when a church tries to form, you have an instigator trying to destroy the church. That may not be their purpose, but that's Satan's purpose. Okay, there's an agitator, right? Well, look, one of these 10, if you drop down, you see here, it says here, you see the yellow letter there? You know what that is? Satyr. His name is Satyr. See? Of the tribe of Asher. He's the hidden one. The son of Michael, in between of the tribe Asher. Asher means happy. Michael means one who is like God. In between happy and one who is like God sits the hidden one who agitates and causes the whole tribe or the whole nation to enter into unbelief. It's the serpent reaching up and taking possession of the crown, just like we saw. And it caused all of Israel to lose their inheritance. This one individual.
He started the doubt.
This scripture comes from Genesis. It's along the same line here. You'll notice it as we read it. Genesis 4:14. Behold, it's talking about Cain. Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground. That word ground means the whole inhabited earth. And from your face, I shall be hidden. You see that? I shall be hidden, or I shall become one of the hidden ones. Do you see the word down here in yellow, the Hebrew word? It's Sater. The aleph in front of it, of course it's read from right to left. The aleph in front of it means I shall be Sater. I shall be the hidden one. Cain, we all know Cain represents the first Antichrist. He kills his brother because he worships properly. So he hates his brother because he has this relationship with God. So this one becomes the first hidden one, or the first. Remember, this word is the only word that equates to 666 in the entire Bible. The three consonant Hebrew word. So he says he shall be a hidden one, a fugitive, and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. Now look at this scripture from Job. Job said there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. Satan came also among them, and the Lord said, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered and said, From going to and fro the earth, and from walking up and down it. God was talking about Satan's response was to God was, Behold, you have driven me today away from the whole inhabited earth, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a hidden one. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill. Who found him? Jesus. See, we didn't see him because he was hidden. But Jesus saw him. He found him. And with his cross, he kills him. And we know he's the one, the wanderer and the fugitive, because look what he says to God. God says, where were you? He says, I was going to and fro, wandering throughout the earth, walking up and down in it. On that note, let's go ahead and call it a night. Was that enough for you? Did you get anything? Did you get anything new out of this? Is this amazing? It's all being unlocked. It's like, God, it's always been there. It's not like God just wrote that chapter. It's always been there.